Our News on Terror segment tonight. Mosul has been completely liberated from ISIS control. The victory for coalition forces marks the end of a 9-month campaign to rid the Iraqi city of ISIS fighters. So what's next for the city and for our fight against ISIS? Watch.
I announce from here to the whole world the end of the failure and the collapse of the terrorist state of falsehood and terrorism, which the terrorist group ISIS announced from Mosul 3 years ago. By the sacrifices of the Iraqis and their efforts and their blood, we were able to achieve victory over this mean and murderous state and send it to the trash heap of history.
With me now, retired Brigadier General and author of Besieged, General A.J. Tata. General, good to see you.
Great to see you, Liz, and happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen, this story should be the biggest news story. This should be dominating the headlines. I mean, Mosul has been liberated from ISIS. That's humongous. I mean, that's one of the two main strongholds that the Islamic State has held onto in the Middle East, and now they're out of it. Instead, the media, the mainstream media at least, has been focusing on Trump's handshake with Vladimir Putin. But General, what does this mean for our fight against ISIS?
Well, you know, if Obama were still in power, he'd be on TV with a bayonet in his teeth saying that he defeated the ISIS forces in Mosul. But what it really means is I think there are two real stories here. And I think the first one is that the rules of engagement that President Trump has loosened and empowered our generals and commanders with have led to an acceleration of rapid combat, decisive victory that we're seeing now. And under the Obama administration, you had bureaucrats and academics like Ash Carter and those kinds of people that just had no idea what they were doing. And now you've got guys like, Mattis and McMaster advising the president saying, hey, these are great people, let them lead and execute. They know what to do. They know the constraints. They know the issues that will blow back on us if we don't do this exactly right. So that's what you're seeing. So that's the first big story. The second one is you're seeing an acceleration in the capacity building of the Iraqi military, police forces, and government as well. And that's sort of the unsung story here, because what you see now is Ramadi, Fallujah, and now Mosul, all reclaimed after Obama stuck his head in the sand. And that has been done primarily with Iraqi forces. And so let's give credit where credit is due. And sure, there have been U.S. forces and coalition forces with them embedded, and they deserve high praise as well, because it's very dangerous what's been going on. But those are the two real stories here to me, Liz.
Right, and answer me this. I mean, now that ISIS, I guess, is eradicated from the city of Mosul, what kind of damage does this inflict on their capacity as a terror organization? I mean, how badly does this damage them?
Well, I think it's a pretty significant damage, because let's remember, 6, 7 months ago, Liz, you and I were talking about how much terrain ISIS controlled, and then how many kidnaps they could do, and how much ransom they could do, and how much oil they could process. And it was all about the finances of aggrandizing al-Baghdadi and all the leaders, which is what ISIS is all about at the end of the day. But now if they've been eradicated from one of their key strongholds, the finance center of Iraq, the huge oil transshipment area, and the dam with hydroelectric power, they don't control that anymore. This is a big blow to ISIS. They're not defeated by any stretch globally or even nationally, if you want to call it that, within their caliphate. But it's a big blow to them, and because it shrinks their terrain and it shrinks their operating capability, it gets them on the move, which is good for us, as we've talked about.
Right, so it takes a hit at their finances, not to mention, I think, the human capital that Mosul provided them, all the millions and millions of civilians that they could make work for them, or sell, or steal from, or kidnap, or rape, or burn, or whatever they wanted to do on that particular day. General, what happened to the ISIS fighters that were driven out of the city? You know that James Comey, when he was FBI director, warned us of a terrorist diaspora, he called it, of these ISIS fighters going back to their home countries, I guess, and waging jihad there. Where did these particular ones in Mosul, where are they headed?
Well, hopefully they're dead. But, if they've been driven out of Mosul, they had one of two directions they could go. They could really go west or north, and because they really couldn't go south unless they infiltrated down to Baghdad or whatever. So most of them probably went to Syria. The homeland is Raqqa, and what we've seen and what my sources tell me is that the forces that we put in Syria have been interdicting the forces exfiltrating out of Mosul. And so we talked a little bit one time about the Golden Bridge philosophy, Sun Tzu and all of that. It looks like we gave them a golden bridge out of Mosul, but then had a good backstop around Raqqa. And there's some simultaneity of action going on here. And you're exactly right. It's not being covered by anybody. What a brilliant plan this is. And, you know, when Trump said, hey, I've got a plan, I'm not going to talk about it, he may or may not have had a plan, but there's a plan that is being very effective right now, I think, in defeating ISIS.
Right. I mean, clearly, if only the American people even knew what was happening over there. It's an incredible defeat, at least of a portion of ISIS within this city, which is a step in the right direction for defeating the ideology of ISIS, of radical Islamists, because that continues. One last question, General. There were reports today, ISIS actually confirmed them, for better or for worse, that their leader, Baghdadi, was killed. Now, this was reported by Russian media several weeks ago, but it was unconfirmed. ISIS itself confirmed it. Do you believe that? Is that credible?
Yeah, you know, I think we're going to have to wait and see, Liz. There's been some other reports of his death, and you know, the old saying, "Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated." See, if somebody gets some DNA and confirms it, I think that'll be something that would be great,
right?
Because and it would play right into what we've been talking about. You get these people moving, they're talking, they're communicating. We're able to track them, and then we're able to kill them. And so I would say there's a probability it's true, but I have no way right now of knowing.
No, and I have no confirmation of it either. And call me a skeptic, but I believe neither the Russian media nor ISIS propaganda here. Give me some proof, and then I'll report it as true. But man, it would be great. General, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.